Welcome to the New Jersey Libertarian Party live stream. We go live every Thursday at 6:30 with the candidates. Today I'm only here with Vic Kaplan, who's running for New Jersey governor, and of course myself, who is hosting, but I'm also running in District 24 State Assembly. And we have 4 days until the end of the election, 4 or 5 days. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. Feeling excited. There are people that have indicated already voted for me, so it's a great feeling. And definitely people who have kind of really liked where I stood on issues, and voted for me respectively, because they like where I stand. Yeah, no, I feel great. I feel awesome. The idea that I'm introducing people to ideas that are not being shared by either the Jack Ciattarelli campaign or Mikey Sherrill, who are not saying anything like what I'm saying. And then people like that because they agree with me, like, here's a candidate who's saying something totally different than what Jack Ciattarelli and Mikey Sherrill is saying, and they like what I have to say. And they say they're going to support me. Yeah, it feels great. Like the overall attitude I have is positive. I think that this campaign I've offered voters a choice of positions that, if you agree with me, I always encourage voters to vote for me, because you're voting for a message. You're voting for positions that, as I believe, and as I'm sure people who are supporting me believe, would improve the lives of the people of New Jersey. And what can be better than that? Not hearing the same old proposals that you would expect to hear from a Republican and a Democratic nominee for governor, and hearing something entirely different. And that is, I think that more and more people do find that refreshing.
Yeah, I do think that people in general are ready for something different. They keep hearing the same things over and over again. But I'm grateful that you ran and you're giving libertarians an option in New Jersey, and also, people who are just looking for something different, and having that extra option. I'm grateful for anyone who runs third party in general to give people that option. For the people who are listening, you can leave your questions or statements in the comments, and we'll answer them. Or you can email me at the email that's kind of scrolling down there at the screen, or you can message either one of us, and we'll get to it. If you watch the live stream after we've ended the live, you can still put it in the comments, and we'll answer it next time, because we do go live every Thursday. However, I think we might kind of change the structure after the election. When we start recruiting for more candidates, maybe we'll invite them on the live stream as opposed to the ones who are going to be on the ballot. We'll start interviewing candidates for our internal primaries, so to speak. So polls very rarely include third parties, which is always unfortunate. But I have noticed over the last few years polls that people get in, through text or whatever. Although I never get any of them. I think I've gotten a text once, and it was when I lived in Georgia. Have you seen that polls are including you or any of the other third party candidates?
Well, I'd say the Quinnipiac poll certainly has included me in the past, and is continuing to include me. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what are the polls saying?
Well, it is polling of 1%. By the way, of course, the highest support for any libertarian candidate for governor in New Jersey was in '97, when Murray Sabrin raised enough money to get into the debates. Of course, in 1997, the requirement was significantly less. I believe you only had to raise $200,000. Not only, but now it's gotten close to $600,000. So the stakes have certainly increased in that sense. But I think that so in that election, Murray Sabrin got 5% of the vote in the debates that he did appear, and he got 5. So if I get I think it's entirely possible that I would be going for the second highest support for any libertarian candidate in New Jersey history. It's entirely possible that I will come in, become the second best. I guess we'll see what the results, the actual results will show, but I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that this is what will happen. And I would say that I wanted voters to give voters not just a choice of the stances that just not just reflect where I stand on issues, but also stances that are reflective of our party's platform. And like I said, I always wanted the party to have a nominee that would represent its platform, represent what the party stands for. And so, if somebody disagrees with me on some of these issues, they don't really have an issue with me; they have an issue with the party's platform. So I've always felt that, and I hope that I can say that I sort of gave the best representation what the party stands for, what the party platform stands for, as I could in this race. But it's been a wonderful experience being invited to some of these events. I've been in the 2 events this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So I guess Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Only was Saturday and Sunday. I've actually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'd love to talk about that if the time allows.
Yeah, of course. And, I think the fact that the last time a Libertarian in New Jersey did, fairly well at 5% was basically the only time we were invited to debates is actually huge, because it means that people are receptive to libertarians or third parties, but we just never even get a chance to truly be competitive. And the kind of financial threshold that they demand to be invited to these public funded debates. I don't know why that doesn't make more people angry. There are some states where candidates actually have to collect a certain threshold before they're even allowed on the ballot. And that's even worse because, okay, so you're basically saying you want wealthy people or people who are at least connected to wealthy people to run for office. And that's how we get this giant oligarch as our government. We actually talked about that a little bit last week, that when we were talking about how you're not funded by corporations or APAC or other groups like that, but having this super high threshold is kind of encouraging candidates to take money from corporations and different lobby groups. And that's what we should be fighting, is those thresholds that prevent just regular people from running for office, and maybe that will help with corruption a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say that a lot of people, and then polls do indicate that they want a third option, they want more options, as you said. And it's so they're what I'm seeing is that people are looking at other candidates. They're looking where I stand for, and it's very positive to see that somebody has voted for me who agrees with my platform and who kind of looked at where I stand on the issues and supports me. I think that a lot of voters, they want they want more options, and unfortunately, what you're seeing is that the duopoly. I mean, the Republicans and Democrats, they feel threatened, so hence the sort of this focus, not just in New Jersey, other states as well, to kind of prevent people from getting on the ballot, right? Raising the signature requirements to prevent people from getting on the ballot because they do not want the people of their states, and including New Jersey, to have more options. They do not want to see that happen. They're so concerned about gaining power, getting elected. Not and it's not about really the focus is well let's improve the lives of the people, right? But it's just about gaining power for the sake of power, of getting elected. And to me, that's that is highly unfortunate because the people want more options. People want to have a voice when it comes to elections, and you have people that just are there to deny that voice, right? People. I mean, I've heard people openly say, so some of the supporters of one supporter of the one candidate for governor saying that people shouldn't have choices. I mean, just straight out say that people should not this election. Of course, we keep saying that how this is the most important election in history. Every election is an
Yeah, of course.
important
It's this
election
one.
in history.
But this one really is, Vic. Don't you know? This one really is the most important. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, another election. Yeah, you could vote for someone who's not a Republican Democrat, but not this election. You can't. You can't. This election, you got to vote Republican Democrat. But isn't that the case that all these people are saying exactly the same thing every election? That yes, maybe some other election, no, but this election you have to vote Republican or you have to vote Democrat. Instead of just what I don't think they even remember that they are. The reality is that they keep saying this every election, right? And I think that there are people who have caught on to this, right? I mean, they keep hearing the same thing every election, like, well, maybe next election you can might want to consider voting for someone who's a Republican, who's not a Republican or a Democrat. But this election, you have to vote. You have to vote this way. You have to vote. And and it's been like I remember the people saying this for the last 3 decades or so. I mean, it is getting really tiresome. Ever since I can remember, that's what I kept hearing. Like, this is the most important election. You have to vote Republican. You have to vote Democrat. So, I think that the good news is that more and more people are catching on to this and know that this whole statement is just a bunch of nonsense. I mean, if every election is the most important election, then what about the last election, right? If that was the most important election, what about this? How can this election be the most important election if the last one was the most important election? Right. I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, no matter who you vote for, you're going to get more of the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you did have a couple of events last weekend. How did those go? I know one of them, two of them were town halls, and one of them was at a gun range. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I went to the one event in the church in Asbury Park. So I thought that event went quite well. I mean, I was talking about criminal justice reform, and people liked it. People applauded me when I was speaking, and so they took it quite well. The people in the audience, there are issues that that I raised. That I think what is happening is that people do not find representation in the Democratic or the Republican Party. Right, the topics that I raise and the positions that I have, they just don't find, like, you just don't hear that among the Republicans and Democrats. And so I think when people applaud me, that shows that, yes, they agree with me, obviously, but it's also the case that I say things that are just they do not hear from the Republicans or Democrats. And that, I think a lot of people find that refreshing. And when people go to my website and they read my positions that they agree with, they also, in their minds, they can see that they do not get these positions from the Republicans and Democrats, and that's why they see my campaign as different. So the event in Asbury Park, yeah, I got plenty of applause there. It was a positive response. There was one candidate who was an independent running for state assembly that I spoke to, and we did find number of points of agreement with her. So that event went quite well. Then there was another event, so I was at the gun range. That event went quite well. This is actually the second time that I was at such an event, and I did like it the first time. I know that the sound may be a bit loud, but you kind of get used to it after a while. So I thought that was a positive experience. That event, again, I've a number of my supporters did show up at that event, so I was really happy that they could show up. And I really appreciated that. I thought that event went really well. And another event that I went to was in Cape May County in Wildwood, also at a church. One of my supporters, one of the people that actually does support me, lives in another state, drove all the way from another state. Well, now this person said that that it was kind of like this person was in New Jersey and felt that this person would stop by the church where I was speaking, but I was quite impressed with that, nevertheless. And so this specific event in Wildwood at the church, I thought it went quite well. The audience were receptive, even when they were not applauding me. They were kind of nodding their heads and kind of expressing verbally their agreement. with what I had to say. And again, I was talking about the same topics that I was bringing up just 2 days earlier. So that event went quite well. It was a lot of positive, I would say, positive feedback from the audience. So I was, I got a lot of positive feedback. When I was asked questions about, whether I'm being paid money by corporations, and I said no, and I gave my response how I'm opposed to corporate welfare. This response now has been posted on TikTok and on Twitter, on X, so you can definitely see my response there. I thought I got a lot of positive feedback from that from my presence at that church. And I was, of course, I thank the organizers for inviting me. Just like 2 days ago, and they're being entirely nonpartisan, inviting candidates regardless of their party. So I was really happy to see that, and giving me an opportunity to speak there as well.
I do want to talk about criminal justice a little bit, but let me just answer this question in the comments. How would you guys feel about this continuing political parties enforcing politicians to run purely, I'm assuming, on their platforms? So, here we go. I feel a lot of voters vote red or blue because they are pledged allegiance to it. So you are correct in that people just kind of pull a lever when they go to the voting booth. But here's something that I kind of learned being involved in the party and being directly involved with the candidates, and also running for office, but also running for office in nonpartisan elections like school board, for example, or a lot of city councils are elections are also nonpartisan. And what happens is that even in nonpartisan races, they're still partisan. They're just not, it's not on the ballot that they're part of a party. But like, we endorse school board candidates as a party, so do the Republicans and Democrats. People also have their platforms in nonpartisan races that are aligned with certain party platforms, and they get endorsements from partisan organizations. So even if we just removed parties in an official capacity on the ballot, I think culturally we would still vote along partisan lines, unfortunately. So I don't really think that's a solution to that problem. But I do get that removing that partisan bias sounds like it would help, but I'm just not really sure it's possible, at least in that way.
No, Lana, I agree with you. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. I know that in Nebraska they have nonpartisan elections for their unicameral legislature, and voters do know, even though it's not partisan, who's a Republican and who's a Democrat. So it's not like they're technically not partisan, but they are actually partisan. And you're absolutely right when it comes to nonpartisan elections. For example, in New Jersey, we have a number of them for council, right? We do have, of course, even when they go under labels where they cannot use the words Republican or Democrat, right? Such as for council in Vernon Township has that in Sussex County. A number of other places have that too. People still know who's a Republican and who's a Democrat, and they may not be using party labels, but that is something that voters are aware of, and so. But yeah,
and even
so go ahead.
sorry.
No,
and even when candidates, like with libertarians, for example, we literally are running as libertarians. Libertarian is on the ballot, or technically we're independents, but we'll have Libertarian Party there. It's like all over our website. It's very clear. Our platform is libertarian, and you will still have people labeling libertarians to other third-party candidates or independents as either left or right. You're a liberal, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're a conservative. And so even when we give them a separate label to identify us as, they still continue to use the two parties to label us. So unfortunately, I don't know what the solution culturally is to get people to understand, kind of expand their view of partisan elections, or looking into people instead of parties. But that's a long road and a lot of creative marketing, I would assume, to fix that.
Yeah, no, and I know there's a follow-up. Yeah, it would be fix everything immediately, but I feel that in the long run, it would be better to allow politicians to more comfortably hold some. Okay, it's the part one. It kind of goes part two there. The opinions that might lean more right if normally they ran more democratic. Yeah, so I mean, this is yes. I mean, I understand in theory if voters were not forced, but kind of a look up what the candidates stand for instead of just going like red Republican or Democrat, boom, 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 and don't need to know anything else about them other than the label. Yes, that if those didn't exist, right? Wasn't there? There's also an organization, No Labels. So I remember those years ago. That's what they support, right? Basically, running candidates with no labels. But
There's also an organization that came up to our table when we were in Sussex County, saying that their organization, I actually forget the name of it, but their whole goal is to get people to vote for anyone, literally anyone, except for the two parties. So even when you have people who are dedicated to kind of trying to remove the duopoly's power, they still somehow create these like very black and white labels of like Republicans and Democrats, and then everybody else, regardless of their platforms or party affiliation. So it's really hard to remove that mindset from voters that is very tribalistic. And just like in my area in Sussex and Warren, you have people, Republicans, conservatives, whatever, that are truly, truly dedicated to the Second Amendment and will vote, or at least they think they're voting in that direction. But then they will vote for people like Trump or for people like Kane last year for the congressional race, and they'll probably vote for Jack when they're all terrible on the Second Amendment. But because somewhere in their life they have been told that Republicans are the only party that is dedicated to preserving the Second Amendment, it doesn't matter what those candidates are actually doing or what history they have. They just know that Republicans are pro Second Amendment, even though it's not actually true. And it's very hard to break faith. And that's what it is. Like, people have faith in their parties like they do religion. And that's really hard to break.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, absolutely, and they also want to, and basically elections for a number of people, it just turns into this kind of a sport where my team should win, and really nothing else matters. I mean, it's not really about whether life would improve. It's not about whether it's like, well, let my football team win, and my team should win, and that's it, and nothing else matters after that. And then well, no wonder we are in the state we're in, right? Because people just don't. Those are the people that don't care about what happens to, the people who live in our state. Like, well, would things get better? Would they get worse? It doesn't matter. It just like, well, let's get our person elected. Well, the last time that you had a Republican governor or Democratic governor, did things improve? No, they got worse. But that doesn't seem to matter, and they're just they just keep voting the same way, even though it doesn't produce any better results. Because it's all about their team winning. It's not about anything else. Nothing else becomes important. So when I'm out here, having proposals to actually improve the lives of the people of New Jersey, yes, it's really great that there are people who are actually willing. There are people who are registered Democrats and registered Republicans who are willing to look beyond their party labels and say, look, this is a person that I agree with on issues. I think what this person wants to achieve, that this will improve the lives of the people, make things better. And this is why they're supporting me, because they're willing to look beyond the party labels. They're willing to say, well, I don't really care what this candidate's party label is. I mean, he's offering something different, something new compared to what we've seen from the Republicans and Democrats, which is more of the same. So I think that one person actually stated that she found refreshing was I wasn't bashing the Chitterelli and Cheryl, and I don't see any point for me to bash them. I have positions that I'm offering, right? If people like them, yes, I would encourage those voters to vote for me if they like my positions, because I'm giving voice to the positions that people agree with. And if they also agree with me, then you have somebody to vote for, right? You can vote for a candidate that reflects your ideals, right? Your views, and that's one of the reasons why I'm in this race, right? So
Yeah, and that's actually something I appreciate about your race as well. But the times that I've run for office, we do have a couple of libertarians that have run for active campaigns in the party that have run similar campaigns that are truly like I don't want to use the word free market, but instead of going to a debate or a town hall, and we've all experienced this, and they will spend the entire hour and a half just pointing the finger or trying to crawl their way up to a moral high ground relative to who's standing next to them. And it doesn't, they don't even talk about their platforms or the issues that people care about. And I do think that people are tired of hearing about that. We did just talk about how people are just very brainwashed and conditioned to have faith and pull the lever of their whichever party they're with. But there is hope. Like I do think that people are ready to accept a third party candidate. And even in this race, there's a large number of people who are still polling as undecided, which means they don't like either of the candidates, probably from the people that I've spoken to, which of course is anecdotal, but they keep hearing the same thing and nothing happens. And now the taxes keep going up and things keep becoming more expensive, and they're being suffocated by regulations, and they can't afford their homes, and their homes are being threatened of being stolen by their local governments because they didn't pay their taxes. But the taxes keep going up. So there's literally, especially in this state, there's no relief. It's just pressure every single day going harder and harder and harder on them. And they're tired of it. So I think people are slowly becoming ready to accept someone from a third party or an independent, which I consider to be hopeful. At least that's been my experience over the last 5 years or so, since 2020. I think 2020 really changed things permanently. Some things for the worse, but other things for the better. And that's one of them, is that people kind of woke up to the lies a little bit. And hopefully, if we keep pushing, the Libertarian Party will have a candidate that wins a significant seat, like governor or state assembly or something like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, Alana, I absolutely agree. I mean, the Libertarians have won those types of seats in other states. Certainly, we've seen that. I mean, historically, in Vermont, in New Hampshire, right? So there were other states, Alaska, right? Libertarians have been elected to state legislative seats in those states. So
yeah, New Hampshire as well, and Maine, I believe. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not certainly beyond the realm of possibility. Yeah, I think as time will go on, I'm sure that because the reality is with time and more people are getting frustrated, and more people are getting disenchanted with the two-party system. And the fact that I'm getting, both Republicans and Democrats and, independents who are voting for me, who are supporting me, who have voted for me, to me, that's that gives me hope, that there is, that gives me hope for the future, for sure. That not all is lost. More people are interested in choices, in kind of new choices. Well, just having choices, period, right? That they're kind of shopping around for that candidate that best reflects their views. And that's why, like I said, I've had sort of the positive response that I've had people from sort of across the ideological spectrum, right, or across the political spectrum, right? The Republicans who like my candidacy, Democrats, independents. So it's I'm not sort of people across the political spectrum do find my candidacy appealing. I mean, among the people that do. So yeah, I think that's something definitely to look up to. And according to the polls, there's again a high number of people. There was a Gallup poll that are interested in the idea of a third party. So that's something that's definitely positive out there. I know that there have been voters that have been disenchanted with certainly on the federal level with the Trump presidency who have voted for him, and there's. So you do see that going on. You see that taking place on the federal level, but also people in the state of New Jersey are just like tired of kind of more of the same, right? And we've seen in the past I mentioned Murray Sabin, he was in debates. Another candidate 12 years later who would end up in debates, Chris Daggett, an independent candidate, right? So he ends up with 6% of the vote on election day. And yeah, he also was in the debates. And, unfortunately for his campaign, well, for him, that the Republican National Committee started running ads against him, essentially accusing him of supporting raising taxes, and his support went down from about 18% to 6% on election day. And unfortunately, not fortunately for his campaign, he just didn't have the money to fight back, to respond, with ads, because by that point, his campaign has already spent quite a bit of money. So even in that case, somebody who was in the debates, 3 debates, as I recall, he, I think he did his best. He got wide support. In terms of the kind of different organizations. He was endorsed by the Sierra Club, and at the same time, he was actually endorsed by Murray Sabin, the 1997, of course, the Libertarian candidate for governor. So he got a variety of kind of diverse support in his race. But it's also so because he was polling around 18%. There's like 19% in the polls. The last thing that the Republican National Committee wanted to have was another Jesse Ventura on their hands, somebody running outside of the two-party system that would be elected governor. So they poured a lot of money to bring his support down. And yeah, in that sense, it worked because, like I said, he ended up with 6% after being at one point at 18% in the polls. So there's a
Just ignore the question for now.
sure,
So we're about halfway, and I want to remind everybody that you can put questions into the chat, or you can email us or message us. To answer this question, we can talk about federal policies. I do want to go back to criminal justice at some point. But the question is, do you think that the current political climate brought by Trump will see higher turnout of votes in other parties? Well, we already saw this last year. So yeah, the answer is yes. People will turn out to vote for Trump endorsed candidates or to vote against them. So
yeah, if I could just briefly respond to that. I think what is happening right now, though, is, in my opinion, I think they're just going to empower voices because if those voices are not being represented by the Democratic Party or by the, within the Republican Party, I think it's going to lead to greater support for minor parties. I think that the crackdown on protesters, I think what we've seen, some of the language used and just the current federal immigration policies. I think that if there's no actual, because I understand that there are people on the ground and people, certainly in New Jersey and in other states throughout the country feel very strongly about that, and you don't see that kind of sort of a pushback being directed from the Democratic Party. They're not representing what a lot of these people feel. This is what I see happening. Like, my stance on immigration falls very much absolutely outside of the Democratic Party politics, right? So, and you really don't see that happening on the level of the Democratic Party, all right? And so I do think that as time goes on, we'll see what's going to happen next year, certainly with midterm elections and with elections being held throughout the country and for various offices, including for governor seats. But I do think that there's a lot of frustration out there, and also frustration with the Democratic and the Republican Party. You see it in the polls, right? But you don't. But there's also, and this is quite evident, you don't see the voters, for the most part, thinking the Democratic Party is it in terms of kind of being a microphone, serving as a microphone for their frustrations of how they feel. And this is why the approval for the Democratic Party is down, even though Donald Trump is not exactly popular these days. So I think that if the I'm not telling the Democrats what to do, but there's all I'm saying is that there's a lot of frustration out there, and it's definitely not being represented by the leadership of the Democratic Party, for sure.
So I know earlier you said that you're getting praise for not kind of criticizing the other candidates, but we normally talk about, well, I guess we talk about both candidates and how they relate to your platform, but we do tend to focus a little bit on Mikey. So I one thing that concerns me about Jack is his not just not wanting to reform the criminal justice system, but wanting to go backwards. For example, one of the articles I read, he uses terms like, we need to go back to respecting law enforcement. We need to respect law and order. Like, he uses words like this, and he also supports things like going back to only reporting use of force when a firearm is discharged, instead of, like when they use mace or when they use any other use of force, which can be abused very easily and does need to be reported. But he doesn't support those things, or he wants, quote, he wants to bring balance to internal affairs reviews, which I guess you can interpret that in a lot of different ways. And so my concern is, if Jack does win, that we're going to lose a lot of protections that we have against law enforcement abuse.
No, yeah, absolutely right. I agree with you. I mean, I think that would be extremely unfortunate if that were to happen. Now, he certainly supports. He opposes civilian review boards. He opposes the use of force, the release of the internal affairs records, and you're absolutely right. He does oppose the use, the release of the when the firearm is not being discharged. He does oppose the release of those records, internal affairs records, and he does oppose.
He also wants to install.
And he opposes cashless bail, yes, and he of course supports qualified immunity for police officers. So he pretty much supports everything that I'm against. So everything that I support, he opposes, and vice versa. I know. I think that is quite unfortunate, I mean, I'm not really surprised, because I guess Trump is in the White House, and he's trying to portray himself as being like tough on crime, which by definition means being opposed to civil liberties. Certainly, that becomes very clear based on his positions. And yes, that would be extremely unfortunate. And he also promised, of course, to double down on those ICE raids, right, to provide support for federal government, and something that I'm completely against. So I absolutely yes. As much as I kind of don't say what candidate A and candidate B are terrible and they support this, that, I think people, yes, looking at my platform, it would be very clear from where I stand that I'm different from the other two candidates. That's pretty obvious. And when it comes to Micah Sherrill, she doesn't even take the stances. She's not willing to take the stances that I take. I mean, there's nowhere that I've seen that she's on the record saying that she, if elected governor, she would fight to end qualified immunity for police officers. That's not listed anywhere. She's not. I understand what she's trying to do, but this, I think we need a real change when it comes to criminal justice. She certainly doesn't support what I support, which is releasing from prisons anyone who was convicted of a non-violent victimless crime. She certainly doesn't support that. So,
she's probably doing that to remain. I don't want to say neutral, but like, she doesn't want to piss anybody off. That it is clear that her platform. I don't want to use the word milk toast, but it's a little milk toast, so she doesn't offend anybody, that much. Sure. Obviously, she's never going to appeal to MAGAs, but she might be trying to not say anything that will completely turn off your moderate average Republican. So that's a strategy. But he also said he's going to install conservative judges that will be tough on crime, like you said, or harsher penalties. And, when we think about having harsher penalties or tough on crime, the first thing that most people think of is like real crimes, right? Like murder and rape and assaults and all these things that we do want to punish, even libertarians. But what that also means is that they're going to be tough on on victimless crimes. And I would actually guess, I wouldn't be surprised, I suppose, if they started making marijuana no longer legal in the state, things like that, where there is no victim, and they're going to be harsher on those types of crimes. And I could almost guarantee that most of the time when they say we're going to be tough on crime, they mean victimless crimes, and never actually make murder and rape and these horrible crimes a higher penalty. They never actually focus on these horrible crimes. It's always the victimless crimes. So that is something that I'm concerned if he wins. I don't think he will, but that is something that I'm concerned. He also, I believe he's made promises to reverse some directives concerning ICE, like a directive that says that local police only need to help ICE if their warrant is for an actual crime and not just because they're undocumented. Whatever that wording is for that directive, because it's not a law, they can just undo the directive. Like as it is, we've already had, I believe, 3,000 people arrested for being undocumented, and I think that that is a low number, even though we're the 9th highest, I believe, in the country for ICE arrests and detainments. That number is just going to go up after the election.
Yeah,
I can guarantee it. I think Trump is probably just, or his administration is just waiting for the gubernatorial election to be over, and then they're going to come back. As it is, 34, I think it's 34% of all ICE detainees in the country have actually been convicted of crimes. So that means only 1/3 of people are quote unquote criminals, but so that's definitely a concern of mine after the election.
yeah, for me as well. The idea that there would be kind of a doubling down on arrest in the state of New Jersey and deportations. That's definitely something that concerns me. Of course, they're planning to do that regardless of who's elected governor. So it doesn't now, which is why I'm running on a platform of stopping this, right? Of actually stopping the ICE agents from doing that. You do see that happening, of course, in Chicago. The mayor of Chicago has done it. I mean, I've been running against it from the, in terms of stopping ICE deportations from the very beginning. I believe that, and I've said this before, is that the federal government has no jurisdiction when it comes to immigration, and these arrests are illegal. Under U.S. Constitution, right, the federal government has no jurisdiction over immigration. Article 1, Section 8 only mentions naturalization, which is citizenship. So all of these arrests are illegal. And certainly, I think that Stephen Miller, who claimed, recently that ICE agents have immunity from prosecution, I think that some of these agents might find themselves in legal trouble because, of course, they don't have any immunity when it comes to prosecution. They could very well be prosecuted for violating the rights of people. I mean, you have seen, and this is something that I think should be of concern of people. Say, oh well, this is not about me. I'm whatever. I'm a U.S. citizen, or I was born in the U.S. They're going after people even after they're showing them their driver's license, their birth certificate, their passport. It doesn't matter. I'm a U.S. citizen. They still arrest you. And there are plenty of videos of that. They don't care. They still will arrest you. Okay, and because they need to fulfill their quotas, they don't care if you were born in America. As far as they're concerned, you are the enemy, right? You are the enemy. You're an American. You're the enemy. Okay, and this is what has been happening, and the reality is that being born in the United States, as we have seen, is no protection from getting arrested. So that's what's been going on. And the fact that some of the people who support this have no problem with that is absolutely horrible. I mean, I can't, you look at throughout history, the Mexican repatriation that took place in the 1930s and 40s. I mean, people can look back as a society and can condemn these actions. How you had people who were born in this country who were sent to Mexico just because they looked a certain way, and yet now this is considered to be okay and proper and normal. It's absolutely insane that you have government agents asking people on the street, were you born in America? Are you an American? Were you born in America? Where were you born if you weren't born in America? I mean, hello, this is crazy. Government agents walking around seeing somebody, oh, you don't look white. Let me ask you what country you were born in, if you were born in America or not. I mean, that's nuts. This is crazy. If somebody had told me this years ago, I would have, I don't know, 30 years ago, I would have said this is insane. In America, how could this be happening in the future? But it is happening. And this is also coming from people who years ago said that the worst thing that the state can do is to have government agents walking around on the streets and asking people for their papers. And now they're asking for the papers because they don't look white. I mean, that's just crazy. But, not surprising, really.
And it is something that you should be concerned about, and I say you as in anyone who's listening, because in New Jersey, a third of our population are immigrants. And I have seen videos of, just bystanders taking videos of people saying, I have my driver's license, it's right on my, and they won't let them. Of course, there is a little bit of hope. I forget the judge's name, but she is kind of cracking down specifically on the ICE agent who shot a pepper ball like directly in that pastor's face. I believe it was like a month ago. So they are facing some accountability, at least some of them. So there's a little bit of hope there, but it is a genuine concern. And this is why it's important to remember what a crime should actually be, right? Being undocumented shouldn't really be a crime. I mean, I know most libertarians would agree with that, but like not having a piece of paper from the government is not really a crime that requires you to be illegally detained and not having due process and all this other stuff. And so when I hear people say, well, they came here illegally, they're doing something illegal, we have to expand what we're considering to be like what should actually be a crime and what is considered to be a crime worth being penalized, especially in this way. And the same people who claim to support the Constitution, I guess, haven't actually read it and don't realize that you don't need to be an American citizen for the Constitution to protect you. You just have to be in the United States. And that just blows people's mind for some reason. But yes, if you're in the United States, the Constitution protects you because the Constitution doesn't actually grant you rights. It's not the government granting you these rights, like civil rights, like voting. It's protecting the rights you already have as a human being. And so it really takes changing people's perspective on what the Constitution is, what the government is supposed to be doing, what a crime is, what should be penalized as a crime, right? And what would require a federal force or a federal army to go around barging down doors and sitting on people and pointing rifles at people. Like, not having a piece of paper from the government is not one of those things that requires that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Yeah, they say that, well, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have rights. Where in the Constitution does it say that? It's so a little ridiculous. Like, where is it? Oh, no. If you're not a citizen, you don't have any rights. What? Where? Where does it say that? Constitution doesn't say that. They have no idea what they're talking about. And the other thing is that, they also don't understand that all these things they're complaining about, we have so many undocumented immigrants, it's because of the policies they support. The people who complain about it, the reason why we have so many undocumented immigrants they're saying are so terrible, it's because of the policies the same people are supporting. They just don't understand that, right? The federal government made it so difficult to legally come to the U.S. You can only do so through your family members or through your employer, which sometimes you have to wait for years and years for a work visa. Because they made it so difficult to legally come to the U.S. We have so many undocumented immigrants, and they're like, well, that's just the way it is. You have to come here legally. It doesn't matter. You have to wait 5 years, fine, 10, 20, 30, 40. If you die, don't come here, fine, that's even better. I mean, this is the attitude of some of these people, but they're complaining about all these undocumented immigrants because of the policies that they're supporting, and they just don't understand that. Of course, they also say we don't need more immigrants, period. So they're like, well, I guess, then what are you complaining about? What are you complaining about all these undocumented immigrants if obviously you don't want to make it easier for people to come here, yet at the same time, you support the policies that makes their presence possible. It's because of the policies that you support. And maybe, you could say I'm being too harsh because after all, I'm not talking about like members of Congress here, but some of the regular people who don't understand that the problems, quote unquote, that they're complaining about is precisely because of the policies they're supporting. I mean, this is really, they talk about like people who came from in the early 1900s. Yeah, in the early 1900s, when it was a lot easier to legally come to the United States. Yeah, oh,
I hear that all the time. You'll say, okay, your grandfather, your great grandfather, whether came in here, right, as an immigrant, and they'll say yes, but they came here legally. But then they don't understand that to come here legally 150 years ago, 100 years ago was so much easier than it is now. So coming here, quote unquote, legally basically required nothing. You just had to not be sick and not be a criminal, and then you could come here into this country. So, it's due to propaganda, and conditioning, probably cultural conditioning, depending on where you live, but also just not being educated on certain things. And not everyone can be well versed on every single thing that exists in the universe. But that's why candidates should try, especially libertarians, since a lot of people are misinformed on what our platform is and what we represent, should be spending a lot of time trying to truly educate people. And hopefully, you and I have achieved that. But
Yeah.
speaking of ICE, I mean, they have a $170 billion budget. Billion with a B. That's an insane amount of money. And here we are cutting things like food stamps. If you know my stance on things, you know that I don't think the government is here to take care of us like parents. So I'm not necessarily supportive of social programs as a concept, and I do think that charitable organizations and churches and communities and individuals are much more efficient at helping marginalized people than the government is. However, when we're talking about cutting budget line items, SNAP would probably be at the bottom for me. Why aren't we looking at the defense budget? Why aren't we looking at this ICE budget? Like, why aren't we looking at these huge billion-dollar budgets that we have before we're cutting things like SNAP that feed children? You know what I mean?
100%, absolutely. I've always felt that way. That the last thing you want to cut is all these social programs. I mean, they're spending more and more money in the military, and this is the crazy part, right? With the Trump administration, but all with the Republicans, they're like, oh yeah, this is just wasteful government spending. Meanwhile, they're spending in the military a heck of a lot more. I mean, a lot more. And it's like, oh no, this is going to grow the economy. No, it will not. It will not grow the economy. How are the American people are going to be better off? Because what, these ICE agents, you're going to hire a whole bunch of ICE agents. That's going to help the economy. How does that help the economy? You're going to spend more money on tanks and planes and whatnot. How will that help the economy? It will help people who work in those industries, but it will not help regular people. You're taking resources from the American economy. You're putting into unproductive means, into, you're not going to be you're going to be drinking a hand grenade, or going to be riding a tank to work. This will not help the economy. You're not helping the economy. You're making it worse, right? You're making the American people poorer. You're taking money from the American people and you're sending that money into completely unproductive, destructible purposes. I mean, really, it's just a waste of money and a waste of country's resources that actually could have been used to improve the economy and improve the lives of the American people. All you're doing, you're taking those resources, you're destroying them and making the American people poorer overall as a result. It's that simple.
Yes. So we'll move to the last few questions that we have to answer, and also if you want to say the events that you're doing this weekend, because I know you're on a 21 county tour, and you got a few counties left. This is the last weekend, so.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So I am going to be. So just a few. Should I answer the last question, maybe, or is that okay? Or
we'll answer it. Just
okay, that's fine. Okay, sure. Yeah. So I just wanted to say, so this is the last weekend. This is Saturday and Sunday, so we certainly don't have a whole lot of time left. But I will be continuing my tour of the state of New Jersey, and this time around, I will be focusing on on South Jersey, right? So like I said, I visited the Atlantic County the other day and Cape May County, so I do plan to visit and I've been to Burlington County, of course, before, and Camden County. So I do plan to continue with my tours of South Jersey. If you are anywhere in South Jersey this Saturday and Sunday, I will be doing a number of tours. I will be at the, first of all, on Saturday at 1 o'clock, I'll be visiting the Margot's International Cuisine in Toms River at 1 o'clock. I will, at 6 o'clock, again, on Saturday, I will be at Krish's Indian Bistro at 6 o'clock in Sewell, New Jersey. And then I will be on Sunday, at 1 o'clock, I'll be at Paladar Boricua in Pendrickstown, in Salem County. And then at 6 o'clock, I will be at Lechonera Brasas de Elena in Vineland in Cumberland County at 6 o'clock on Sunday. So that is my plan. Again, it will be it's posted on my website at vic4liberty.com. So you're more than welcome to meet me, ask me any questions. I make myself available to the voters of New Jersey every Saturday and Sunday, and this will be my last stops before the election, of course, on Tuesday. So Again, visit my website, vicnumber4liberty.com, and if you're in the South Jersey, please feel free to meet me in those locations, and I'd love to meet you and answer any questions that that you may have. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I went to your events last weekend in South, and I do think that these southern counties are generally ignored when it comes to statewide offices. And so I appreciate you going down there. And I had never been to Cape May County. I haven't been to many places in the South, in South Jersey, unfortunately. And those people there are actually very in tune with politics. And also, unfortunately, they tend to be impoverished areas who feel these policies directly in their everyday lives. And so they're ready to vote for someone who's actually going to help them. And so I do notice that you tend to get a lot of support in the southern areas for those reasons, because the policies that libertarians have on their platforms and they support are policies that will help marginalized, impoverished, and ignored residents. You actually had somebody ask you about zoning ordinances and laws, and because they get how these zoning laws affect them directly. And when you can't afford $800,000 to buy a house, and you have to move in with someone, you have to live in an RV in somebody's yard, and you can't legally, that affects them. That makes them homeless. They get it. They get it down there. So I'm glad that you're able to go down there and speak to them. So the last question that we have here, I'm gonna put it up here. Do either of you have a desire to take a swing at something larger than state-based, which I'm assuming you mean president, which I think that's probably the only thing that you could do nationwide. I don't know. For me, probably not. Well, first of all, I don't think I can legally be president, so that would probably get in the way. But for me, it's, if my party believes in me enough to represent the party in any office, whether it's like school board or president, I would have a hard time saying no to that.
Yeah, likewise, I feel the same way. For me, for president, it's the same way, of course. But yes, and yeah, I would definitely be open to running for any local office, of course, as well, if that's what the party decides. But I, of course, on the federal level, we both have run for Congress last year, so that's that. I wouldn't consider that to be bigger than the position of the governor. Larger than state-based, but it's difference on the federal level, not a state level. But so yeah, I mean, I would be open to other positions as well, of course. And yeah, they actually Cape May. That is.
Can you be VP as an immigrant? I don't know no, you can't. I don't.
No, you're not. So there's states. They would allow you to be on a ballot even if you're not born in even if you're not. I'm not even talking about not born in the United States, because obviously Ted Cruz was born in Canada, but one of his certainly parents is American citizen. Certainly in my case, that's not the case. So I can't even make that argument. But no, I honestly, I had no desire to run for president. Even if I could run for president, I don't think that's something that I would have considered, even if I was born in the United States. But
come on,
nah.
Not one voted for you.
No, I mean, president is a very big job, and I never held that kind of a high. I want to be king, or and it's fine.
Yeah, but you could become president and then eliminate the federal government, period, or at least attempt to. Just get rid of the whole thing.
Yeah,
what is it? A benevolent dictator? No, I'm just kidding.
I would want to release from prisons everyone who has been convicted of a nonviolent victimless crime on the federal level, for sure. As president of the United States, I would want to see that on the federal level. But that.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Jim Tucson. Jim Tucson, if you don't follow him, you should. He's very knowledgeable on libertarian philosophy, and he reads the news and he always gives good commentary. And I have noticed that he's been tagging Vic in every I don't even know how many at this point, but media or news articles that are talking about Jack or Mikey, but then don't include Vic. If you go and kind of spam the comments, vote at Vic for Liberty or whatever, that is one way of informing people that Vic exists and is going to be on their ballot. Because media is biased. They don't care about third parties. And every time they mention third parties, it's literally like a sentence. It's like, paragraph after paragraph about Mikey and Jack. And then at the end, it's like, oh, by the way, Vic Kaplan and the other two independent candidates are also running for office. And it's like, thanks, very little, I guess. So yeah, thank you, VP, Vic President. Vic for President. So yeah, thank you, Jim, for doing that. I know that's it takes quite a bit of effort to pay attention to social media and be able to do that, and it does help. Because even if people are just briefly looking at the comments, they'll see Vic, Vic there, and that does help.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for all your comments and reminding voters that there are other there's another candidate running for governor. So thank you for that.
Yes. Okay. So unless there is anything else, and if you guys think of any questions, you can still put it in the comments and we'll answer it next time. Or you can always email one of us and we'll answer it through email if you want it to be private. Anything else, Vic? Last word?
No, like I said, feel free to join me in those events on Saturday and Sunday. Again, going south, Salem County, Cumberland County, and Ocean County and Gloucester County. And just finishing up the 21 county tour. I've been to Woodbine. I remember at one point in Cape May County, and it's. I have noticed that town, the poverty rate, the high level of poverty that existed there. I mean, not just in terms of looking up the statistics, but just looking at the sort of the type of housing that people live in, and you can definitely make that assessment based on what you see in front of you, and that is that's quite unfortunate. When I remember when I was looking at the houses that people live in, and it's you definitely see that is not an affluent community for sure. Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you, Lana, what you said, that people can definitely benefit from, having affordable housing in places like that. I think they would love to have affordable, more affordable housing. So, absolutely. So yes,
I like calling it accessible housing because that's what you're making it. When you change these zoning laws, you're making housing more accessible to people, especially when it comes to RVs and tiny homes and things like that. Like, I see no reason to make them illegal or difficult to attain. Tiny homes somehow, and even things like raising animals like chickens and things like that literally feed people. It somehow became like a wealthy person's hobby, especially with tiny homes, and it became only accessible to wealthy people to own those things, which they were originally designed for people who can't afford bigger homes or just don't want to live in bigger homes. So anyways,
yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. Yeah, that's why I support changing the zoning regulations to make housing more attainable, more accessible, as you said, more affordable. That's people use different connotation for that. So, yeah, absolutely, Lana. So yes, so please visit. Again, thank you so much for all the wonderful questions. Thank you so much for the live stream. Don't forget to visit my website at vic4liberty.com. That's vic4liberty.com at the bottom of the screen. Lana Leguia's website, who's running for state assembly, at lanaleguia.com at the bottom of the screen, and Dustin Maggard for state assembly at dustin4liberty.com. Please feel free to donate. It's coming out close to the convention, and it's still not too late to volunteer, right? If you like, I mean, this Tuesday is the election. I have literally people right before the election just telling me that, I just found out about your campaign. Is there anything I can do? So, I definitely got my vote. And so, yeah, I mean, the election is still ongoing. The last day to vote is Tuesday. So, again, please visit our websites and definitely, if you'd like a yard sign, or if there's anything else that you like to volunteer, I mean, there's still time to do it. I mean, it's Thursday, and there's still the weekend left, and of course Monday and Tuesday. And of course, if you are in South Jersey, yes, please, you're more than welcome to come and stop by and ask me any questions that you have, or have grab dinner and grab lunch, and I'd love to talk to you. So thank you so much.
Yes, and the things that we need help with the most, the candidates and the party right now, anyway, in the next 4 or 5 days before the election, is people who are willing to do texting and phone calls. Remind them to vote Libertarian this year. If you do want to donate, you still can technically donate to the campaigns, but I would suggest donating directly to the party, specifically our federal account, because next year we're going to have a congressional race. We're going to have congressional candidates, and they need help being promoted and getting started. So we're going to go live next Thursday at 6:30 and kind of recap the election and the election results. And then the Thursdays after that, we're going to start talking to candidates that want to run for office with the Libertarian Party, and kind of understanding who they are and what their platforms are going to be, and getting ready for the New Jersey Libertarian Convention. So keep tuning in on Thursdays at 6:30, and I hope everybody has a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.